is your favorite place to go when you play hide and seek? Do you hide in a dark corner or hidden away closet or maybe even a little chest that seems to be a tiny bit too small for you? Me, when I was young, my favorite place to hide during hide and seek was under the truck cap in the far corner of our backyard. Ugh, imagine doing that now. Hi Dad! Hello everyone and welcome to Weary Lore. Today we're going to dive into a supposedly true Christmas time story. You've most likely heard it or seen it or read about it in a book, but did you know that it actually happened? The Mistletoe Bride is a short story, a tale of children's game gone horribly awry, but it is one that has stuck in the minds of the populace for hundreds of years. But before we get into that, allow me to tell you the story. On Christmas Eve, some hundreds of years ago, a young woman and her dashing fiancé were to be married. The wedding was marvelous, beautiful, the bride, the centerpiece, in her gorgeous white gown and flowing veil affixed to her head on a wreath of mistletoe. After their vows were said and their wedding breakfast eaten, the bride, her groom, and all that accompanied them decided to play a game of hide and seek. Just a normal game of hide and seek. All the adults, full of whimsy and cheer, ran to opposite corners and floors of the massive home, finding their own perfect hiding spots. The bride, known for being competitive, headed for the attic, a dark, dusty place with plenty of good spots to disappear into. In the attic, she found it, the perfect hiding spot that no one would ever think to check. An old, heavy oak chest. She bundled herself inside, large wedding dress tucked under her body and her veil falling around her. She ducked her head before letting the chest fall closed with a resounding thunk, completely oblivious to the old lock clicking into place. The Mistletoe Bride had sealed her fate. The game continued, and no one knew anything was wrong. Not until everyone but the bride had been found. They searched high and low from wall to wall, and the panic rose. They searched all through the day and night, and still no one found the bride, and she hadn't reappeared on her own. As Christmas Day drug on, the searchers started to give up hope, and as the day came to a close, they had come to a chilling conclusion. They were never going to find the bride. Years, decades later, the old man decided to leave the cursed home where his beautiful bride had disappeared. It was a melancholy feeling of love lost and life not lived, but it was time. And with the help of his extended family, he emptied the home, leaving no room untouched, including the attic. The chest was found, and upon opening, its secret was revealed. The skeleton of his bride still sitting in her disintegrating wedding dress. The Mistletoe Bride had never left home. Depending on the version you read, that's usually where it ends. It's a short tale of a child's game that took a turn for the macabre. There's rarely any names mentioned or a time period, but there are many people who will tell you that this story is true. It happened, and it is history. Very important history in England. So, who was it, and when did it happen? I'm going to start in 1822, just over 200 years ago. This is, most likely, the first time this story appeared in print. It appeared in the form of a poem by Samuel Rogers. This poem is titled Ginevra. Now, the poem is long, and I will not read it all here. However, the last stanza goes as follows. There then had she found a grave, within that chest had she concealed herself, fluttering with joy the happiest of the happy, with a spring lock that lay in ambush there, fastened her down forever. Now, this poem is written as having happened in Italy. That does contradict the original story having happened in England. However, the author himself said, The story is, I believe, founded on fact, though the time and the place are uncertain. That leads us to the conclusion that 200 years ago, this story was already a legend. It had already lost its time and its place. Was this because it's just that old, or was it because it never happened? It truly was just a legend. In more than one of the articles that I read about this story, it was stated that it happened during the Victorian era in England. Now, some historians claim that the start date of the Victorian era is earlier than what is stated now, but the official run of the Victorian era refers to the period of Queen Victoria's reign, from 1837 to 1901. Well, there's a little snag. How can a poem written in 1822 claim this story to already be legend when others say that it didn't even happen until the Victorian era? There's a couple roads you can take here. These articles are wrong, and this legend happened far before the Victorian era. Or the first printed mention of the story is the origin of the story. Samuel Rogers wrote a beautiful poem, claimed it to be a legend, and went down in history. It was just a tall tale. However, there is another piece to this puzzle, a song called the Mistletoe Bell. This song was written in the 1800s, popularized in 1859, by T.H. Bailey and Sir Henry Bishop. It's referred to as a national occurrence at Christmas in English households, at least in the 1860s. What's most important about it is that it names a name and a nobility type, Lavelle and Baron. So when did Baron Lavelle live? There have been 4 baronies of Lavelles, both spelled with 2 L's and 1, starting in 1456. That's at least the start of a timeline. As far as I understand, a baronese is a family of barons, or the people who owned the Baron Lavelle land. This doesn't actually help us a lot, as it looks like one of these lands was held up until 2011. However, that was not held by a baron of the actual name of Lavelle. The latest one I see held by a Baron Lavelle was held until 1759. 1456 to 1759. Still not a great range, but better. Maybe I'm looking too deeply into this. Now, this part I did not figure out on my own. It was stated in an article. This legend most likely happened, should it be true, at Minster Lavelle Hall, a building built by William Lavelle in 1440. It was an impressive manor house that remained a residence of the Lavelles until it was forfeited after the Battle of Bosworth, the last significant battle of the Wars of the Roses that was fought in 1485. That is a much tighter timeline, 1440 to 1485. Unfortunately, that's where I hit a roadblock. It is very hard to even try to find what Lavelles may have lived in Minster Lavelle Hall in those years. It's hard to find just Baron William Lavelle because of passed down names and the sheer amount of years that have passed. There are still William Lavelles alive today. Now, is the William Lavelle from this story the William Lavelle that lived from 1440 to 1455? Is it a different one? Would a one-day marriage even be recorded in the history books? I highly doubt I'm going to be given the Lavelle family tree to try to figure this out. Even if I was, it's highly unlikely that it would date back that far. Just because a family was nobility in the past doesn't mean that it is now. I'm not, and I have Dutch's ancestors. So, was there a mistletoe bride? Yes, it's likely there was. But will we ever be able to prove it? That is very unlikely. So take this as what it is, a creepy Christmas story popularized in Victorian England and still told to this day. My advice? Play hide and seek responsibly and stay out of old oak chests. Happy holidays. Thank you so much for watching. I have linked Ginevra and the mistletoe bough in the video description below if you want to immerse yourself a little further into this story. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give me a subscribe and like. Have a wonderful rest of your year and a safe new year.